Your heating system has a single point of failure, and you've been paying a monthly subscription fee to pretend that point doesn't exist. Picture the night the furnace stops. Not a dramatic explosion, not a warning light you could have caught, just silence where there used to be a low mechanical hum, and a temperature that starts dropping so gradually you don't notice until your breath is visible in your own living room. The pipes haven't frozen yet. The children are still asleep. Night, you have maybe 4 hours before the cold becomes a medical problem, and every heating professional within 50 miles is already booked solid because the grid failure hit everyone at once. That is not a hypothetical. That is a Tuesday in February for millions of households that believed infrastructure was a permanent condition rather than a temporary arrangement. But the clay pot sitting on your kitchen shelf right now, the one you use for nothing more important than a succulent, is the difference between that Tuesday being a disaster and being an inconvenience. You just haven't been told how to use it yet. The heating industry is not in the business of keeping you warm. It is in the business of keeping you dependent. Every forced air system, every smart thermostat, every high-efficiency gas furnace is engineered around a single assumption: that the supply chain feeding it will never break. Natural gas passes through compression stations, regional pipelines, local distribution networks, and a meter on your wall before it becomes heat. And each one of those links is owned by a different company with different maintenance schedules and different failure modes. Electricity travels from a generation plant through high-voltage transmission lines, You-One through transformers, through your neighborhood grid, and through a breaker panel before it reaches a heating element. You are not buying warmth. You are renting access to a delivery system. And the moment that system hiccups, you are cold regardless of how much you paid last month. In the winter of 1932, a farmhouse outside Tulsa, Oklahoma stayed above 50 degrees Fahrenheit for 11 consecutive nights when the temperature outside dropped below zero. The family inside had no electric heat, no gas line, and no money. What they had was a clay pot, a shallow dish, and a single tallow candle. A setup their grandmother had described to them years earlier as something she learned from her own grandmother, who had never owned a furnace in her life. The Depression didn't invent this method, it rediscovered it. It stripped away every modern convenience until only the physics remained, and the physics, it turned out, had never stopped working. Clay is not a conductor. That distinction matters more than almost anything else in this conversation. When you think of heat transfer, you probably think of metal, a cast iron skillet heating unevenly, a copper pipe warming the moment the hot water arrives. Metal conducts. Energy moves through it fast, and it releases that energy just as fast the moment the source is removed. Clay is a thermal mass material, which means it does the opposite. It absorbs energy slowly, and stores it in the molecular structure of its ceramic matrix, and releases it slowly. Not in a burst, but in a steady, sustained radiation that continues long after the original flame has gone out. The specific heat capacity of fired clay sits between 800 and 900 joules per kilogram per degree Celsius, compared to roughly 450 for cast iron and 130 for copper. In practical terms, that means clay holds nearly twice as much heat energy per unit of mass as the cast iron your stove is made of. And it releases that energy over a time period measured in hours, not minutes. A clay pot placed over a candle flame for 45 minutes doesn't just get warm, it becomes a thermal battery, charged with stored energy that it will spend slowly and evenly across the next 4 to 6 hours. Think of it this way. A slow cooker and a frying pan both apply heat to food. The frying pan gets scorching hot immediately and cools down the moment you cut the burner. The slow cooker never gets dramatically hot, but it holds a steady, even temperature across an 8-hour window with almost no additional input. The clay heater is your room's slow cooker. The candle is not the heater. The candle is the charger. Understanding why this works at a room scale requires separating two types of heat transfer that most people collapse into a single concept. Convective heat is what a forced air furnace produces. It warms the air circulates. And the warmth distributes through the space. The problem with convective heat is that it stratifies. The warmest air rises immediately to the ceiling, where it helps no one, while the occupied zone near the floor stays comparatively cool. Radiant heat works differently. It doesn't warm the air. It warms surfaces directly, the same mechanism by which the sun warms your skin even on a cold day when the surrounding air temperature is freezing. And the uncharged clay pot radiates heat outward from its surface in all directions simultaneously. The walls absorb it, the floor absorbs it, the furniture absorbs it, and those surfaces then radiate back into the space, creating a distributed thermal environment rather than a column of warm air rising uselessly toward the ceiling. That is why a clay pot heater feels warmer than its BTU output suggests it should. You are not measuring it correctly if you are only measuring the air. You need 2 unglazed terracotta pots, one with a 3-inch diameter, one with a 6-inch diameter. Unglazed is not a preference, it is a requirement. Glazed clay has had its porous surface sealed, which eliminates the slow thermal absorption that makes this work. You need a steel bolt approximately 4 inches long, 4 steel washers, and 2 steel nuts. You need a shallow ceramic or metal dish to serve as the candle platform. And you need 3 to 4 long-burning candles. Tea lights will work for the testing, but a proper 3-wick candle rated for 12 or more hours of burn time is your operational standard. That is the complete materials list. Nothing on it costs more than $15 total if you buy new, and most of it is already in your home. Place the candle or candles in the shallow dish on a flat, non-flammable surface. A concrete floor, a stone tile, a ceramic trivet, never wood, never carpet, never near fabric or paper within a 2-foot radius. Thread 1 washer onto the bolt, then insert the bolt down through the drainage hole of the small pot from the inside, so the bolt extends below the pot. Add a washer and a nut on the outside to hold it in place, finger tight plus a quarter turn. This bolt assembly serves 2 purposes. It plugs the drainage hole so heat cannot escape straight down, and it creates a thermal anchor, a small metal core that absorbs additional heat and extends the radiant cycle. Place the small pot over the candle, bolt side down, leaving roughly a 1-inch gap between the pot's rim and the dish surface. That gap is your oxygen intake. Without it, the flame suffocates. Now take your large pot and place it over the small pot like a dome. The large pot should not sit flush against the surface. You want a 1/2-inch gap all the way around its rim, which you can achieve by placing it on 3 small stones or coins of equal height. Thread a second bolt, washer, and nut assembly through the large pot's drainage hole the same way, tightening to create a thermal plug at the top as well. The nested configuration is not decorative. The air gap between the 2 pots becomes a convective heat exchanger. Cooler air enters at the bottom, contacts the superheated inner pot, rises through the gap, and exits at the top as warm air, while the outer pot surface simultaneously radiates heat into the room. You have created a 2-stage heat delivery system from $40 of garden supplies. Allow 45 minutes before you assess temperature output. The clay needs that time to reach full thermal saturation. Do not touch the outer pot with bare skin after the first 20 minutes. Terracotta at full charge will be between 160 and 200 degrees Fahrenheit at its surface. Hot enough to cause a contact burn in under 3 seconds. Keep children and animals away from the unit and never leave it unattended in a room where they are sleeping. These are not edge case warnings. They are the operating conditions of any radiant heater regardless of its fuel source. At full charge, a properly assembled dual-pot clay heater with 3 candles generates between 100 and 150 BTUs of usable radiant output per hour. 9. A standard 10 by 12 bedroom requires approximately 400 BTUs per hour to maintain a comfortable temperature in conditions above 20 degrees Fahrenheit outside. 2 units will cover that room. For an insulated space, a vehicle, a tent, a well-sealed cabin, a single unit raises ambient temperature by 8 to 12 degrees Fahrenheit within 90 minutes and holds that gain as long as the candles burn. The University of Colorado's Alternative Energy Program measured a single candle clay pot heater, maintaining a 6-degree Fahrenheit rise in a sealed 8-foot by 8-foot test room for over 5 hours on 1 candle. That is not a campfire trick. That is measurable, replicable thermal physics. The cost comparison is not subtle. The average American household spends between $200 and $400 per month on heating during winter months, depending on climate and home size. A pack of 12 long-burn candles costs between $4 and $8 and provides approximately 120 hours of fuel. To run 2 clay heaters continuously for a month costs less than $20. The clay pots themselves, if purchased new, represent a one-time cost of $8 to $12 combined and will last indefinitely with basic care. 9. You are looking at an emergency heating solution with a total capital cost under $30 and an ongoing fuel cost of less than $1 a day. A system that requires no utility connection, no maintenance contract, no smart home integration, and no permission from anyone to operate. The families who lived through the 1930s didn't write instruction manuals. They passed the knowledge across kitchen tables, in letters, in the margins of farming almanacs. It's oral historians documenting Depression-era rural life in the American Midwest have recorded dozens of first-hand accounts of claypot heating as a standard cold weather measure. Not an emergency backup, but a primary supplemental heat source used alongside wood stoves and coal furnaces. What the historical record makes clear is that this was not improvisation. It was engineering within constraints. ID applied by people who understood that material behavior doesn't change because your bank account does. The grid that delivers your heat right now passes through 7 different failure points: power generation, long-distance transmission, local substations, gas pipelines, delivery infrastructure, smart meter software, and the utility company's own solvency. And you control exactly none of them. Either you have a plan that works when any one of those links breaks, or you don't. 2 clay pots and a candle is not a statement about civilization collapsing. It is a statement about geometry and specific heat capacity. The people who will be warm this winter are not the ones with the most expensive systems. They are the ones who understood that heat is physics, not a service plan. Build it this weekend. Share this with one person who heats their home on a fixed income.